From Little League to the big leagues and everywhere in between. From one stage to another. Passion is my middle name. I'm J.J. Davis. This is In Focus. The Men's College World Series celebrates its 75th anniversary in Omaha, and it's coming soon. And to think it all started in Kalamazoo, Michigan, way back in 1947. Played a couple of seasons there before coming out of the dugout in Wichita for just 1 year. And now, in the on-deck circle since 1950, the Men's College World Series has been here in the Big O, Omaha, Nebraska. Sitting to my right, getting ready to go to bat, is the chairman, president, treasurer, whatever, of the College World Series of Omaha Incorporated, John D. Deasing Jr., affectionately known as Jack.
Thank you very much, JJ. It's great to be here.
Your father...
You did your homework.
Well, your father lives through you with that name Jack. You're called Jack Jr. How did that come about?
Well, they didn't ask me back in those days, but I think it was a tradition 60, 70 years ago. You had parents like to have their oldest son follow their dad's namesake, and so they named me after my dad, obviously, and it seemed like in those days they would name, we were a Catholic family, they name your sons after saints. So I was St. John, but they didn't want to call me John, so they started calling me Jackie. And then Jackie was a little bit too whatever for as you got older, so then they morphed to Jack. So
all right,
I've been Jack ever since.
Have you been a saint?
No, I haven't been a saint. I don't qualify.
All right, 75 years, the Men's College World Series. Can you share with us any things that are coming up that are special, celebrating its 75th
Sure,
season?
yeah. I mean, as we get ready to welcome the teams back here for the 75th, much like we did in the 50th, you think about it, Omaha's become synonymous with the College World Series. It's called the Road to Omaha for a reason, the greatest show on dirt. We thought it'd be appropriate to have a celebration and to recognize some of the wonderful baseball accomplishments that have happened, as well as the community spirit. So we've created
the pin,
75th logo,
the pin.
Which incorporates the iconic Road to Omaha statue and the diamond for, diamond represents 75th anniversaries. And we also created a website, cwsomaha.com/75. We'll have all the events listed and interviews from people over the years that recognize the past 75 years. And we created a decal that we're going to put on the sidewalks going around. During them, we created a sculpture that's going to go around with
It's been a journey.
Yep.
Tell me about your journey as a kid growing up. What kind of kid were you?
Well, what kind of kid was I? I was a good kid.
Yeah, of course.
No, I went to St. Margaret Mary School. I went to Creighton Prep, graduated in 1963, and had the opportunity to go to the Naval Academy. Yes. And that was one of those things where my folks thought I got a offer to sign up for the military academy for a golf scholarship, and I didn't want to do it. My folks said, "Oh, you ought to do this." And so I did it and went through all the tests and everything you need to do, and I ended up getting a fourth alternate appointment to the Naval Academy, which we go, and I went, "Well, I don't want to do this." And my folks said, "Oh, you ought to try it." Anyway, I applied a bunch of schools, been accepted at Santa Clara, which is where I was going, and all of a sudden in May of 1963, I got the letter. "You have been accepted to the Naval Academy." So that's how it went, and I went to the Naval Academy and spent 4 years there, spent 4 years in the service afterwards. And
I was going to say, you were commissioned an ensign.
Yes.
You required, 4 or 5 years of duty. You told me you served 2 tours in Vietnam at the height of the Vietnam War.
Yes, when I graduated, I was the last class for 4 years. Every class after that's 5-year requirement. And so I served 4 years, 2 years based out of San Diego, made 1 tour over to Vietnam on a destroyer, and 6-month, filed naval gunfire support off the DMZ. The ship I was on fired 25,000 5-inch 54 rounds at the enemy. And then the second tour duty was on a guided missile destroyer. And we went over to Vietnam, 6-month cruise, and did plane guarding behind aircraft carriers in the Tonkin Gulf. So, and after that was over, I decided between 4 years at Naval Academy and 4 years at Navy, I needed to do something else.
But you had to make your parents and relatives, not to mention yourself, proud.
Well, I think they were very proud, and as a lot of people who graduated from the Naval Academy, it takes a while for you to understand what it really means, because what you go through, or any of the academies, what you go through is different, and so it's not fun, and it takes you a while to look back on it and say, you know, that was a heck of an experience. So I would say my parents were proud that I did it, and probably took me 20 years to realize what it meant, but after 20 years, I've been going back every 5 years with my wife for our anniversaries.
And you've also gone back to prep, and you've spoken at various times. And at one time you were quoted as saying, "Don't just do to get by, do what is right."
Well, you know, you've got to do what's right. Duty, honor, and loyalty is what I learned at the Naval Academy. So you don't get anywhere by trying to skate around the truth and what you need to do. So you need to realize sometimes it's hard to do the right thing, but at the end of the day, when you do the right thing, things always work out for the best.
Retired from a company called Aon.
Yes.
How long have you been involved with the College World Series and the nonprofit organization?
Well, my second full-time job, as I always used to like to say, was being president, chairman of the board of College World Series of Omaha, Inc. So I've been involved since I got on the board initially in 1985. And then in 1989, when things were changing at the NCAA and younger people were coming along and they wanted to start doing things that was kind of bugging my father, he said, "Would you like to do this?" And that was back in the day when probably people that were chairman of the boards had a little more authority than they do now. They could do things unilaterally.
That is correct.
But he recommended and appointed me as president of the board, and so I've been involved in doing that since 1989.
Your father was the chairman from what?
63
to 2002.
19, well, no, actually, he was 2002, 63 to 2002.
Yeah.
Yep.
What did you learn watching him?
Well, you talked about doing what's right. I would say doing what's right, being involved in creating relationships with all the relationships get everything done. You have to have good relationships. We needed good relationships with the NCAA, and my father showed me that it's important to know the right people and be able to look for collaborative ways to get things accomplished. But also at the same time, you had to have good partnerships here in Omaha.
Correct.
So with the mayors change, city councils change, local business leaders change, and it was important to set up a board and an organization that could help facilitate that public-private partnership.
You talk about relationships and facilitating things. 2008, a big deal to you. You signed the 25-year agreement to keep the College World Series in Omaha.
Well, there's, as I say to a lot of people, there's no I in team. That's another thing I learned over the years.
I thought Michael Jordan said
Yeah,
that.
well, he may have. And yes, we did sign the agreement in 2008 to build this new stadium, which is now the Charles Schwab Stadium.
Charles Schwab Field.
Charles Schwab Field.
That's right.
Very good, JJ. You should know.
That's
right. And at the time, the head of the NCAA said, which is indicative of, emblematic of what Omaha means to the College World Series, he says there's something special about Omaha.
Right.
And so we signed a 25-year agreement, and little known story, but when we decided, we came up with the idea to build a stadium. We went to the NCAA with that idea, and they thought, oh, this is wonderful. And when we came up with a plan to build the College World Series, build the stadium, it was going to take, we thought, at least 20 years to pay off the debt. We, the city, and business leaders, and College World Series. But we said, well, let's just go for 25 because maybe we'll end up at 20. And we went with 25, and there wasn't even an argument. They said, okay, we'll do it.
Were you surprised?
Actually, we were surprised that there was not even a discussion. It was like, okay, if you can get the community behind this, we're behind you. So that's emblematic of what creating relationships means, because we had created a foundation with the NCAA.
But what kind of guy are you? Because I get the feeling, I used to see you, on the field when I was all sweaty and everything, handing out the Outstanding Player Trophy in honor of your father. So I really didn't get to know you then. I was too busy running around. But you seemed to me to be a very amicable gentleman, a nice guy that's able to facilitate, as you said, relationships. Is that the way you are, and is that the way you were?
Well, I would like to think that I'm that I'm a nice guy, and I relate well to people, and I treat people fairly, and I give people room to get their work done.
Mm-hmm.
And I set up a foundation to help it get accomplished. But as I said earlier, there is no I in team, so I'm a big team player. I've been a team sports person I played sports ever since grade school. So
that's right. Comeback champions, 1962 Creighton Prep. What position did you play?
Center. I was center, middle guard, linebacker. Yep. It's weighed the same thing then I do now. Yeah.
I was going to say, what did you weigh? Like 100 and a little bit of change? What?
182 pounds of steel.
Comeback champions. Explain that, because I've been trying to find out.
Well, we had a lot of good players in our team, one of whom is somebody Sandy Buddha.
Oh, Sandy.
He was actually he was an all Big 8 player at Kansas. Anyway, Don Leahy was our coach, and we lost the first 2 games of our senior year by a combined score of 52-0.
Ah.
And Leahy made some changes, and we didn't have a lot of stars, but Leahy made some changes, and I was involved in doing them. So I was a undersized center who he made me play tackle to show the tackles they didn't know what they were doing. But what ended up happening through what Leahy did is we won the last 7 games and beat North, who had Churchich and Davis and those guys in the Ford Norseman in their backfield. They were first in the state. We beat them 7-0 at Rosenblatt in the mud, fortunately. And so we won our last 7 games. So we went 0-2 and won our last 7, and 5th in the state. So we were the comeback champions in 1962.
And people might not know this, but you led Prep to 4 inner-city golf championships, 4th and 6th place finishes at state. And while you were at the Naval Academy, you actually competed in the NCAA golf championships. So do you still play golf?
Oh, I still play golf.
What's your handicap?
My index right now is 3.8. I've had the good fortune to win the club championship, the Omaha Country Club, 15 times. I played actually my claim to fame at the Naval Academy is I did okay, and I was 3rd on the team and had a pretty good record. But my claim to fame was I made the NCAA. Our claim to fame was we made the NCAAs the last year I was there, our golf team, and the person who won it was Hale Irwin.
Oh, he won the Open champion. Right?
Yep, he won the NCAA tournament, and I realized then that I was an okay golfer, but I was not at that level. So he was way better than me.
But you are a tremendous administrator, especially for the College World Series of Omaha Incorporated. In the end, how do you want to be remembered? What do you think your legacy will be?
Well, I'd like to be remembered as the individual that, first of all, carried on the foundation that my father set up, and secondly, was able to maintain the board and the staff of the College World Series to help continue facilitating the local public-private partnership and the relationship with the NCAA that allows the College World Series to continue being in Omaha for the next 75 years, because it is so good for this city. It's a 122 million of economic impact every year. And because of the College World Series, because of the foundation we've laid and the way the NCAA relation with us, we got the swim trials here.
That's right. And that's just for starters, because so many things are coming to Omaha. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
You're a good man.
Thank you for including me, JJ.
And
I
thank
appreciate
you for
it.
your service.
Oh, thank you.
For his service. Coming up next, another guy who's doing a lot for the city of Omaha. After the break. This guy, like the previous gentleman, wears many, many hats. Let me see. Poet, playwright, designer, director, painter, producer, and of course, a proud dad. Sitting upstage center, under the spotlight, which he deserves, is the producing artistic director of the Great Plains Theater Commons, the Honorable Kevin Lawler.
Thanks for having me.
What don't you do?
Investments?
You're an artist.
Yeah.
We're not into investments.
Yeah, not on our level, I guess. Yeah.
You are so calm. And when I think of a person that does all these things, that's involved in all these things, I would have expected a guy that's a little more JJ-like, energetic.
Yeah, I don't know. Just different motors running at different speeds.
But you know when to shift gears.
Yeah, maybe sometimes.
All right. 1988, you were one of the co-founders of the Blue Barn Theater. 2014, founder-director of the National Institute for the Lost. 2008, you've been involved with GPTC. How do you make all this work? And that's just for starters.
I don't know, but I'm curious how you have that in your brain.
Well, as I think I told him just before we started this, I'm an actor. I've done a lot of things. So you just do it, like I said. So how do you keep involved in all this stuff? And like I said, that's just the beginning.
Well, some of those things you mentioned were sort of consecutively, or not consecutively, but like done one after the other. So I'm not doing a ton of stuff at the same time, but yeah. I don't know. I don't have the good answer for that one. Sorry.
What were you like as a kid? Who were your influences?
When I was a kid, nature was probably the biggest influence on me. I grew up in one of the early neighborhoods in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it was one of the first places where they were building houses, because that's how old I am. And so basically it was surrounded by farms,
right,
and woods, and it was right by the Mississippi River. So that was back in the day, as you well remember, when your parents kicked you out of the house.
That's right. You were gone all day.
Gone all day.
Yes.
And I just wandered around out in the woods and stuff. And a lot by myself. We did have like a gang of kids, but I was the youngest.
Right.
So if we were playing together, they were like, Kevin, go out on this ledge and see what happened, So I didn't like hanging out with that group.
You were the last guy, as we say, always picked.
Yeah. Try touching this thing. So I spent a lot of time by myself,
right,
and I spent a lot of time in nature. And growing up in Minnesota, also had connection with the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota, which is a huge wilderness area. So that's been a really powerful influence. That's probably one of the biggest influences on me.
How did you find the arts, or did the arts find you?
That's a good question. I was more into the visual arts, into drawing and painting before theater, and that's really what I wanted to do with my life, was be a visual artist. And in high school, I had a teacher, an art teacher, who sort of saved my life. Renee Desjardins was amazing. I don't know if she's still alive, but if she is, I owe her a huge thanks. And she just gave me a pass that anytime I had a study hall, she said, you can come to the art room and you just use any supplies you want, as much as you want. So I did that. And all I did was make art in high school. And my parents did not want me to do it. So they did everything they could to stop that.
And what did you say?
And I protested as I could, but
right,
I didn't get to kind of head off in that direction, but I did start to get sucked into theater.
Well, you then travel theater-wise to SUNY Purchase College in New York. I think they started with a couple of dozen kids. They ended up with just over 12, I think 14, Susan once told me. How did you get there?
I knew I wanted to, at a certain point, I knew I wanted to try theater, and so I thought I'd need to try to get into a great training program.
Right.
Somehow. So there were auditions of like the top schools would get together, and they called it like league auditions. And there was an audition in Chicago that was the closest for us Midwest kids. So I went to Chicago, And I auditioned for Juilliard and maybe Carnegie Mellon. But then I was walking through the hall and there was this table for SUNY Purchase, and I saw a few blank spots on the sign-up list, and I said, "You got an opening?" And they said, "Yeah." So I auditioned for Purchase, and that was the only school I got into.
Sounds like my story. What'd you learn?
At Purchase?
Yeah.
I mean, how long of a show do you have? Like, it was
deep.
An unbelievable education. The people that we were working with, like Chuck Jones for voice, George Morrison was our acting mentor. These people were at the top of their teaching profession in the country, and they work with us as people and as artists.
People. I like that. People.
Yeah, it was huge.
So 1988, you graduate. 2 words, 1 city, New York. Did you think about that at all?
Well, yeah, so we all went into New York City and auditioned for like all the agents
Right.
before we graduated. But there's a little bit of a story before that. In like our junior year, I put on a couple little one-act plays just of my own accord. There was a kind of a warehouse on campus, on the Purchase campus, and I just thought I want to try to do these 2 little pieces. So I put it together with my classmates and put flyers out around the campus, and people came, and I loved it. And we had been just focusing on acting, and it was frowned upon to do anything else but acting. But producing that and directing that and working on that, I was like, oh wow, this is my thing. Like, I love doing it all.
A lot of people don't find it. You found it.
Yeah, so that thing happened. So then I started having these little informal meetings with my company members, because we could see Steppenwolf was just getting started in Chicago.
Right.
And I was like, we could do that somewhere like Seattle or Denver or where in Minneapolis, where I grew up, So we could do this, and tried to get people interested, but it never took off.
But then you migrate to the Midwest and Omaha, Nebraska, and you help found the Blue Barn Theater. The progression, how'd you get from there to there?
Well, so when we auditioned for all the agents, I got 3 agents in New York, like film and TV, theater, and commercial. And I started going out, and I hated it. And a really honest agent told me, he said, there's not a lot of roles for 22-year-olds in the city right now. You're going to have to like just kind of hang out for about 10 years. And
That's what I heard in LA, the 10-year plan, they always called it.
And you'll be the right age. And then there's a ton of stuff for a 32-year-old.
Right.
But 22-year, it's a lot more rare. So, and I just thought, I can't wait for 10 years. I have
That's
to
exactly
keep,
what I thought.
yeah, making work. I got to keep making
Right.
work. I might be dead by the time I'm 32. So I didn't know what to do, but I knew New York wasn't the right place. And my sister was going to school out here, and I was talking to her, and she said, well, why don't you come out and visit Omaha for the weekend? And that was about 35 years ago.
So you come out here, you help found the Blue Barn Theater. You're the founder and director of the National Institute for the Lost in 2014. And your motto, or creed, if you will, is to produce highly original work that fosters the exploration and celebration of life. Explain.
Well, I think those words are pretty good. And it's just my own production company for when I am able to do make my own little theater pieces,
But you're also a painter.
Yeah.
You've written a book.
Yeah.
You paint, and you've said pretty much, I paint and want to showcase stuff that pushes the boundaries of real and imaginary. That's deep.
Well, it's I mean, maybe, yeah, but it's just fun. It's where I naturally like to swim.
What do you think people swimming in the ocean with you would say about you?
Depends on who that person is. Some of them would scream
Yeah,
and
I've been there before.
head back toward shore, and some of them would be like, let's go a little further out. I don't know. I love finding kindred, spirits to make work with.
Well, when you speak of kindred, the Great Plains Theater Commons, it's about community, original works, exploring, and sharing that with the rest of the people.
Yes, stories. It's about stories, celebrating stories, supporting stories and storytellers, and not just in the traditional theater sense.
Right.
It's definitely in that traditional way, but also in a lot of other ways. So we'll work with groups in the community to hear what stories they're fascinated with, what stories mean everything to them.
And you have artists, playwrights, whatever, come in from all over the world.
Yeah, the new play festival, which is coming up in like a month and a half, is amazing. It's a free week of storytelling of the best storytellers from around the country.
Do you feel like, because I get the feeling, you found your calling, you're in your groove, you're at peace?
Yeah, I mean, with the work I've been able to do and am doing, yes.
You've been an actor,
Mm-hmm.
Night of the Iguana, you won an award. You directed many, many plays, the Santaland Diaries at the Blue Barn.
Mm-hmm.
You did a monologue before, and one of the reviewers called your work breathtaking. Does anything excite you?
Oh, I get excited at the sunrise every morning. Like everything excites me. That's the problem, or maybe not. That's the blessing. I get excited talking to people. Like, it all excites me.
What's in your future? Where do you see yourself going as a father, an artist, with your tentacles in many different things?
I mean, my job as a dad is to try to support my daughter's what she wants to explore. So I'm just trying to facilitate that as much as possible and have fun with her.
I feel like I'm looking at a guy who's having fun. You found joy. You're just happy, living it one day at a time. Like you've said, National Institute for the Lost. It's all of us.
Right. The largest organization in the world.
We got to get that in. So in the end, how would you sum up your life up to this point? We got 40 seconds.
Incredibly lucky and blessed life. And to be able to explore our lives, my life and all of our lives and our universe as far as we can.
Well, listen, I want to appreciate your coming in today. You're deep. I mean, I'm just an airhead, but you're deep.
Oh, JJ, thank you so much. Your questions and how you have memorized everything.
Well, I appreciate it very, very much. And
thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for this latest edition of In Focus. As I always like to say, I'll see you around town.